Well, hello everyone. Happy Wednesday evening. I hope everyone is doing well. Staying inside largely. It seems that Tennessee is starting to open up a little bit. I noticed yesterday that there are a lot more cars out on the road, and I noticed some people in restaurants. So hopefully, prayerfully, things will get back to normal. It's been about 3 weeks that I've been off work now. Honestly, didn't know what day it was. I had asked Trish, but it is Thursday morning. Prior to you seeing this, I believe it's going to come out Wednesday night, next Wednesday night. But we're getting along there. So yeah, it's a lot of time at the home. Hair's a little messy. I am wearing shorts, but hey, if we're a little casual today, I guess we could do that because of the tape. But I hope and pray you guys are doing well. I wanted to talk today, I guess if I were to title the message, it would be Open Rewards. And last week we talked about, in the book of Matthew chapter 6, mostly verses 1 through 6, how the Lord talks about our fasting, our giving, our prayer life, and that the secret aspect of this, us doing it to Him, not to be an outward display to other people, is really what is most important. We talked about giving. It's not a matter of, the offering plate comes around and I sit there and say, hey, Jeff, come on over here. Got me a brand new $5 bill. Put in that offering plate. Everybody see that? And you dunk that in there. It's not about display. We want to give secretly. The right hand doesn't know what the left hand is doing. And it even come to mind, I've been in a couple of churches where instead of the ushers bringing you the offering basket, that people would get up and go walk down the aisle and bring their tithe, which is fine. And I think the notion there is very honest. Just bring your tithes into the Lord. I know the times we've been there, we usually give our tithe envelope to one of the kids, have them go up because they just wanted to kind of sit there. But even in that situation, you've got to be careful. Look at Scott. He goes up every week and gives his tithe. And of course, knowing me, I'd probably want to take the tithe envelope and shove a bunch of ones in there to make it look nice and fat. Look at him. He's awfully dedicated. He's awfully faithful. So even in that, sometimes you've got to be careful. Or in that situation, God forbid we shame people that were not coming up to walk down to bring their tithes in. So again, some of these things, all these motives are perfectly harmless, but sometimes the heart of man, it could be proud, and in that religious way, often we want to make ourselves look good. But I wanted to point out again in Matthew chapter 6, in verse 4 and 6, the Lord points out, it says that God, seeing what you've done in private, will reward you openly. It's stated specifically that in the Amplified Bible and in the King James. It uses the word openly. So He sees what's going on in secret, but the reward is an open reward for all to see. And I want to take us to the book of Esther. Wonderful, wonderful historical event, just with Esther, with Mordecai, with Haman. Just truly remarkable. But I want to, and I trust that you're familiar with it, so I'm not going to read all of it, but just hit some of the highlights. But I want to point some things out there. In Esther, it's in chapter, I'm going to start in chapter 2 here, and just read a little bit in verse 21. And again, you guys are probably familiar with this, but let me just read a couple verses here. In those days, as Mordecai was sitting at the king's gate, Bigthan and Teresh, two of the king's eunuchs who guarded the threshold, became angry and sought to lay hands on King Ahasuerus. And this came to the knowledge of Mordecai, and he told it to Queen Esther, and Esther told it to the king in the name of Mordecai. When the affair was investigated and found to be so, the men were both hanged on the gallows, and it was recorded in the book of the Chronicles in the presence of the king. So here, Mordecai discovers a plot against the king. He goes to Esther, who in turn goes to the king, warning him about it. This is something that is done privately. He sees it, he investigates it, he brings it to the king, and the whole plot was averted. But it said that those things were recorded in the Chronicles. They were recorded. And I would encourage you to realize that things that were done, they are being recorded by our Lord. He knows what's going on in our lives. And here's this recording that is taking of these events. Now, as we read on, and I believe it's somewhere in about chapter 6, we see that, and I don't know, the historians could probably tell us how much later this occurred, I don't know, but you certainly get the impression it wasn't immediate. But the king is having some of these chronicles read to him, and he says, basically, hey, did we ever do anything for that Mordecai guy? That was really good what he did. And they're like, no, I don't think, no parties, nothing really went on. And the king is like, well, we've got to fix that. Let's do something for him. So basically, in a sense, they throw a party, a parade. And of all people that's responsible for leading it, it's Haman. Now, Haman, a notorious evil man. And this guy has put in his heart, because of the wickedness there, because of the envy, to destroy the Jewish people. Why? Well, the king had put him in a place of position, and he expected everyone to bow to him, but Mordecai would not. Jews don't bow to anyone or to anything, only the Lord, and Christians need to be the same. So Mordecai wouldn't do it, and because of that, a hatred developed in his heart to get back at Mordecai, but not only him, but the entire race of Jewish people as well. A wicked man. But he is the one who has lead Mordecai's parade. But again, you see in that situation, this act of defending the king was done privately, but now the reward from the king to Mordecai is done publicly. It's done openly. And again, as we know the story, the plot that Haman has against Mordecai and the Jews is foiled as well, because of Esther's willingness and bravery to go, and trusting in the Lord, willingness to go before the king, and has this plot diverted. Mordecai, again, does that privately through Esther, but yet it is brought out publicly and openly. He is rewarded. Why? Because after that whole instance with Mordecai and Haman, the king, the scripture says, makes Mordecai the second in command in his kingdom, and he's also given him the use of the royal signet. So he is given a lot of public authority and position. An act done privately is rewarded later openly by the king. Very interesting. So you see this this teaching of Christ that is even carried through in history before he even shares this with his disciples. Another thought, however, when we consider Haman. Now, Haman is a guy that is plotting. He's working behind the scenes. He's working the king to try to get him to do what he wants against the Jews. He's making some things up. He's not. Haman doesn't say, well, hey, the Jews are bad people. They're really hurting the kingdom. Let me bring Mordecai in here and some of these other Jewish leaders. Let's have a trial. Let's get this thing out in the open and try to get things taken care of. No, it's a sneaky way about it that he goes. And it's done in a private way on behalf of Haman. However, when it's discovered what he's doing, he is publicly rewarded for what he did. How is that? Well, he is hung on the gallows. It is a public execution. So again, done privately, seen what was done, but yet rewarded, even though a bad reward in his case, was rewarded openly. So we see this theme in this story, just like Jesus taught. And I think it's, I know that the Old Testament it brings into account a lot of the teachings from the New Testament. So it's so important that we spend some time learning those scriptures. Now, with that in mind, I would like to encourage the church workers that toil with the kids, that toil with taking care of the business affairs, that toil with preparing the sermons, and work hard privately. And there are things that you do that no one even knows what you're doing. At least me, I get to stand here and preach a little bit. I get a little bit of feedback from people, but there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes that people don't even know. Those of you neighbors that will help the people beside you, helping in their yards, helping them with their food, helping them in their finances. These things that you do each day to help and to encourage and to sit with and to talk to. That conversation that you have with your neighbor that perhaps you don't even want to have because you've got other things that seem more important, but yet you take the time. Those things. The employees that work hard, that aren't always going around trying to get a pat on the back, but they work diligently as unto the Lord and often very unrecognized, but yet they'll go the extra mile, they'll do the other step. All of these things, doing them as unto the Lord, but not seen by men at all. They're done privately. Parents. Now, children can be a very unappreciative bunch. They can be tough. Moms especially. You don't get as many of the thank yous or the hugs or I love you, and you wait maybe once a year on Mother's Day, maybe to get that nice card, and sometimes that doesn't even come. But kids can be tough. Teenage kids can be tough. A lot of times you don't get the appreciation that you really deserve, but yet you work, you sacrifice, you give. Nobody sees it, nobody knows, or at least you think so. But the Lord knows. He sees exactly what you're doing. And these things are recorded in a sense. He doesn't have to have them written down and then brought to his recollection later. He knows. He knows what you're doing, folks. He can see these deeds. And it's very difficult often to do things without being appreciated. It's easy to get discouraged. You see other people that are maybe promoted ahead of you. Maybe other parents seem to get some more accolades or some more appreciation from their kids. Maybe other pastors seem to get, their congregations may seem to like them or appreciate them more. Worship leaders, secretaries, you name it. All of these things that we do, and we do them as unto the Lord, but he does see. Just like Jesus taught us, just like we see an example of Mordecai, and he sees privately all of these things, but there will be an open reward. It may be in this life, perhaps, but certainly in a heavenly kingdom, and he is preparing for you. So be encouraged, especially during these tough times. Keep up the good work, keep giving, keep fasting, keep praying, keep seeking him, and keep serving him the best that you can. Amen. God bless you guys, and I hope you have a good evening and a good week.